Whether it's the correct method or not, the single most widely accepted way to determine a player's skill on Call of Duty is their kill-death ratio stat. The first thing players go to if they want to talk shit about another player is what their KD is. No other stats matter. Playtime, score per minute, prestige, level, win-loss ratio are all completely irrelevant. In addition, all of those stats may in some way be based off of what your KD is. In this video, we're going to examine how they are, how you can boost each one, and the right way to play the game in order to keep getting better. Now, the methods explained here work for pretty much any Call of Duty game, except probably the original 3, and may in some part actually help you in other shooters as well. Now to start, we're going to take a look at my Call of Duty stats from when I begun playing the game to where I am now. The first game I played with any consistency was Modern Warfare 2 on the 360, and my stats show it. 25 hours of time played, 3,050 kills, 4,812 deaths, 36 wins, and 221 losses. If we do the math, that comes out to a .63 KDR and a .16 win-loss. What those mean, if you don't know, is basically for every death, I'd get 63% of a kill. What that means over the long term is that generally I'd get 63 kills for every 100 deaths. The same is applied to the win-loss ratio. I only won 16% of the time. For every 16 wins, there would be 100 losses. Pretty depressing, I know. Now as we moved into Modern Warfare 3, things got a little better. I still struggled mostly, but as time went on I grew as a player and my reflexes and map knowledge got better. My win-loss ratio is still garbage, mainly because of the fact that I pretty much only played free-for-all. 292 over 777 comes out to 38%, so still not pretty by any stretch. However, my KD took a big spike going from .63 to .79, mainly due to the fact that I was finally learning how to correctly play the game and score well in free-for-all on a more consistent basis. The first giant spike came during Black Ops 2. I like to think of myself as kind of a master of free-for-all in that game at least. I rarely, if ever, played any other mode in Black Ops 2, sometimes search, but 99% of the time it was free-for-all. My KD went up all the way from .79 to 1.2 and my win-loss jumped an insane amount to 2.41. However, until recently, as good as those stats looked, I was by no means a complete player. Since I only played free-for-all, I was only good at winning at free-for-all. I only knew the spawns in free-for-all. If I tried to play domination or something else objective-based, I'd typically go double negative and quit out of the game. I believe this to be evidenced by my ghost stats. While the stats look decent now, for a long stretch of the game I was back down around my Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3 numbers. My KD was somewhere in between .6 and .8, and my win-loss was around the same area. Ghosts was not a game made for free-for-all. I tried playing it for a few weeks, but since all the maps in the game, save for perhaps Strike Zone, were so much better suited to something like Domination or S&D, games dragged on, I'd get sniped by campers, and the whole experience wasn't worth the marginal bump in my KD. It is here that I'd like to go into one of the most important aspects of raising your in-game performance, and one of the biggest single things that I have learned how to do in Call of Duty that has impacted my positive performance: how to play the objective correctly. To highlight this section, I'd like to use the game that I am the most proficient at playing the objective as it should be played in, Call of Duty Ghosts. The first and most important aspect of playing the objective correctly is not uselessly flinging your body around on flags. That gets you killed, it gets you angry, it gets your opponent kill streaks, which makes you and your teammates lose and leave the game. Now, as you may or may not have noticed when the video faded in, we had recently lost the B flag, and that I was about equidistant from being able to capture the A flag or try to capture the B flag. Now, keep in mind that at this point in time especially, you're still a noob. Everyone, including myself, wants to be a hero. But looking up in the corner of the screen, you'll see that I'm not having a spectacular game. To this point, I have not been able to consistently kill people out in the open. That means I have basically no chance of being able to flush the opponent out of the B flag with all the cover that's inside of it, therefore making it a much better option to settle for the A flag and set up for the B spawn trap due to the fact that we have both A and C captured now. Doing so will allow me to get my confidence up and fluster the enemy team a little bit. Alrighty, we've moved a bit further into the game and we're up to 19 kills against 12 deaths, which isn't a bad game all things considered. Now that we've righted the ship, so to speak, it's time to make an assault on the B flag, especially considering our teammates are challenging C. When challenging an area when there are many people in many directions, as our Oracle showed us, it's very important to constantly be ready to get into a close quarters gunfight, which typically means a good amount of barrel walking, which means walking while your sights are aimed in, or at the very least not a ton of sprinting. Depending on the game, Stalker, the perk, or the stock attachment is very helpful. The first instinct of many is to sprint towards a flag as quickly as possible, but in an indoor area especially like this one, it's imperative to move slowly and thoughtfully to avoid getting picked off from a random corner. Once the area has been cleared out, and ideally once you have a teammate helping you out, it's time to jump on the flag. Moving along to our next tip, making campers move. Now this may seem kinda strange since, at the moment, you're still a noob and don't possess the gun skill on a consistent basis to flush out campers. This doesn't work as well on something without an objective where people literally just camp for kills and not to defend anything, but it can still be applied in some capacity. You'll see that, despite my earlier fears of it, I've gone to capture the C flag instead of B. B on strike zone, as we saw earlier, can typically have 2, 3, or even 4 people sitting on the inside of the flag if they control it and one other flag. However, if you can make your way out to and capture the A flag, or in this case the C flag, you'll typically get 1 or 2 people to come out of the B flag and challenge you, as we saw that poor sucker do a couple seconds ago. That makes flushing out the B flag a lot less stressful, as there typically isn't as much resistance. And while I did die a few seconds ago, due to the fact that I'd pushed up with my teammate and flushed some people out of the spawn already, we spawned a lot closer to flag and were able to capture it with a lot less resistance, only having to flush out 2 guys. To summarize how to play the objective correctly, it all comes down to the 3 keys that I've elaborated on. Know your limits as a player, be as methodical as possible when challenging flags, and finally, make campers move. If you follow those steps, along with what else is to come in the video, you'll find yourself doing better in objective-based modes such as domination, even if your raw slaying power and gun skill are still works in progress. At the very least, while you may only see a slight bump in KD initially, you should see a good spike in win-loss after putting these tips into practice. As you win more, you become more confident and knowledgeable. When you become more confident and knowledgeable, the gun skill will follow. That is not to say, though, that I don't have plenty of tips and tricks in gun skill as well. After all, like I said at the beginning of the video, all your other stats do ultimately come down to whether or not you can effectively win gunfights. The hardest psychological hurdle to overcome when trying to get better as a player is how much it sucks initially. Now, Call of Duty and Activision have done what they can in recent years to sort of shorten that time period, i.e. lower the skill gap between players who are dominant and players who are mediocre and bad. While this has worked in some capacity, there are 2 different layers to playing COD dominantly. You can either destroy people in public matches, i.e. pub stomping, or you can try and raise through the ranks as a professional in game battles, MLG, arena mode, what have you. Towards the end of Black Ops 3's lifespan, I had found myself at probably the height of my skill had I just stuck in public matches. While I was pretty good with a 1.8 win-loss and a 1.3 KD, I had hovered around those numbers really since I had joined the game. You'll have to take my word on this, by the way. I don't have Black Ops 3 installed on my current PS4, and the screenshot you're seeing now is the best I could do for stats. Anyway, this changed when I ran into a group of guys and we decided to start a clan together. Because of this, I started grinding it out in arena mode against substantially better players. And while we got whacked most of the time, I slowly felt myself getting better as I learned the nuances of the game from my opponents. Something I'd always try and tell my discouraged clanmates to keep in mind is that iron sharpens iron. You won't get better by playing inferior competition. Yeah, we had been able to dominate in pubs, but whenever we got into arena mode, we just got annihilated. With this in mind, the second big tip is to tough out the bad games. Not to leave when you start getting obliterated, to take your loss and the pain that comes with it. When things come easily, you get complacent and start not taking it as seriously, and I think that's what happened to my clanmates who eventually got too fed up with this idea to keep playing with me. We were all so used to just annihilating people in public matches that there was just zero tolerance for anything else except that. Trust me, you won't get better anytime soon by getting together in a 6-man party with all your buddies and dominating people. You'll get better by playing solo and getting beat up until you can hold your own. How can I say this so confidently? Just look at my stats post Black Ops 3. While I don't look too good in MWR due to my obsession with getting all the calling cards for that game, I'm still in the top 1% of all free-for-all players. And on Infinite Warfare, I've got easily my best long-term KD ever, 1.8 with a 1.6 win-loss to boot. The largest jump, however, is in my Ghosts KD. Since learning these things and coming back to Ghosts on my new account, I've posted and held the first 2.0 KD I've ever had. A full point of improvement from my previous account. What I've already told you and what I'm going to still tell you works, and my stats speak for themselves. And finally, on to the third and final big overarching tip, which is to analyze and adapt. We're going to start out with a death here after a failed flush-out attempt. Now this process is significantly dumbed down in the newer 3-lane CODs, but nevertheless it's an important skill to learn now, while it's more forgiving. I've already charged their backside a couple times already this game and gotten picked off. This time, however, they're slightly weakened by our previous assault. With this in mind, it's a better idea to try to catch the large group of enemies from the flank and take advantage, especially considering that I have a couple of teammates moving up with me. It is extremely important to take advantage of, but not rely on, your teammates. Sometimes you can't cover every line of sight, so you have to split up like me and my friendo do here. He got picked off in the crossfire in a second, which sucks, but because he took that death, I'm able to go on a large streak and help the team out while I wait the spawn rotation out and take advantage. This harkens back as well to the make campers move tip. When campers are out in the open, typically they do not have the gun skill to hold their own and literally just make a beeline for another, if not the same camping spot. If you shift your position around within that camping area, you'll catch them off guard each time they attempt to retake their power position, basically giving you a free kill. As a noob, it is extremely important that you get as many of these easier kills as possible as you learn and pick up nuances on the fly. That's how you get better at the game. And finally, the third branch of the analyze and adapt tree is to not get too greedy, as I will in a couple of seconds. Once you've got the campers in this frustrating rotation, don't make it easy on them by leaving the spot and allowing them to set up again. If you do that, they'll swoop back in. When you turn back to retreat to that spot, you'll find yourself in their crosshairs. Such a turn of events can have disastrous consequences, especially if the campers cover their tracks a little bit more, or if you get caught in a bad spawn rotation, which, in Call of Duty, happens a lot. I get greedy and poke out my head here, but end up dying from behind as the camper's retaken his position behind me, and I have to go start the process all over again. We're reaching the end here, so let's launch into a bit of a summary of everything. We've got 3 big tips, and 2 of those 3 have 3 sub-tips to help you out. Firstly is to learn to play the objective correctly by not throwing yourself on flags uselessly, by challenging methodically, and by making campers move. Secondly, you need to remember that iron sharpens iron. Stay in the tough games and don't lead just because you're getting destroyed. As tough as it is, you will get better by taking those losses. Thirdly and finally, analyze and adapt by using prior knowledge gained in-game, by taking advantage of teammates, and by not getting too greedy. Now, I'm not guaranteeing instant results. It took me years of progress to get to where I am today, but as long as you keep the end goal in mind and stay the course, you will improve. If you liked this video, I'd really appreciate it if you drop me a like, and if you want to see more content like this, check out the other stuff on my channel, and hey, if you enjoy it, why not subscrizzle to catch more spicy content every time I'm not killing myself from the stress of potential academic failure. Please remember to upvote your feelers.